Right. So, as part of our technical business analyst learning is concerned today, we are going to discuss about different business scenarios. Because whenever we go as a business analyst, whenever we are working or whenever we are applying for technical business analyst roles or business analyst roles, whatever it is, imparting technical knowledge is becoming inevitable. It's not only about the functional skills one must acquire because functional it can be healthcare, it can be banking side or insurance. Functional knowledge is required for anyone, as you know. At the same time, business analyst skill sets, something like requirements gathering, analysis of requirements. This is all anyway which are common for any business analyst roles. Apart from that, now and then requirements from the role perspective, job roles perspective, are translating into the technical business analyst role. So the people are expecting a person should have some technical knowledge. So as a BA. In that regard, so we must be knowing about what are the different scenarios. There can be many, of course. I'm going to cover few scenarios as a business analyst. How should we move further, right? What are the different scenarios we come across and how this can be answered by us as a BA? Okay, this is what something that we are discussing today. Do remember, I'm not going to the basics of interview scenarios because basic of interview scenarios, yes, people were well aware of it. Some complex business scenarios I'm explaining so that people will have an idea. So the first scenario as I'm taking majorly from the system integration and API test strategy point of view, because integrating from one system to another system to conserve the data is required. For example, any insurance company, okay, insurance company wants to uh, access the policy data when some claim people have received any claim request for their customer. They want to receive whenever they receive the claim information from the customer or the policy holder, they want to review what type of policy a person is holding, what are the coverages are there, everything they have to review. So based on the review, they have to move on further. Okay, what are their eligibility, everything, so that what is required. So there must be an integration of data from policy center to claim center so that they can consider the data, they see the information over there. Like this, integration from one system to another system or among systems to conceive the data is important. So, systems integration and API strategy is a topic that we have taken because as a technical business analyst, the major understanding here is to how to define how the data is moving from one point to another point, okay, without any breaking of existing architecture. Okay, that is important. uh, as I have given you the example now, right? So to consider the data, to access the information from one system to another system, for that building an API in between is important, right? So we need to build API in between. So we must integrate systems. That's more important. In this process, uh, what kind of, because whenever we have applied that I am experiencing in API integration expertise also. For example, right, someone has uh, claimed that I have experience in that regard. So there are possibilities where people can ask us about different scenarios, right? So they may give you a scenario where you need to answer that. Sometimes interviewer asks us to give us a particular scenario so that how you have addressed it. This is how the things were. So in this regard, the first scenario, one scenario taken. For example, retail company wants to integrate its legacy inventory system with new e-commerce storefront. The scenario as follows: like for example, there is a retail store, right? So retail store manages different products in their inventory. Whoever the customer come across, they can buy whatever the goods they want so that they can pay bill out of it. So what is needed? So whatever the e-commerce storefront means, assume that these people are selling goods online through an e-commerce storefront. It has to be integrated with their legacy inventory system. What is inventory system? Inventory system where they will be storing all the goods. What are the different type of goods they have, including the quantity, brand, everything will be stored in the legacy inventory system, their inventory system, so that they will be knowing how many goods are sold so far, right? So how much is the balance? So based on that, when to order, because they have to have a proper effective supply chain management, so that if someone is trying to buy something, right? So there shouldn't be any option like unavailability of goods, nothing like, right? It should not have, right? So the reason why they have to maintain their inventory management system effectively, consider that a retail company has already have a legacy inventory management system which is on place in their in their organization, which is well equipped. Now they wants to integrate with the legacy inventory systems to new e-commerce storefront which they have introduced. Now, if this is the scenario, there are technical people who will be doing the integration. Okay, so development team do the integration using RESTful SOAP API or RESTful API, right? So this is anyway they do that. So prior to that, as a technical business analyst, what are our tasks? That is first thing that we should understand. So as a technical BA, one of the important tasks is to map the data fields between two systems. Okay, that is important. That is the first thing, right? So mapping the data fields. What could be the data fields? Data fields can be the type of product, right? So catalog of that particular product. Every product will have an ID number. So all these informations were there. So mapping the data fields between two different systems is one of the key thing that we need to perform. Okay, because inventory system has all the data of the inventory products, which must be accessed by a person whoever wants to buy the products online. So he wants to buy. So mapping the data fields is one of the key and important thing between two systems. This is the first thing. So as a technical business analyst or a business analyst, we must be knowing about how to map, right? So you must be knowing about the concepts behind the data mapping. You must be knowing about staging database. You must be knowing about the concept of ETL. What are the ETL tools that we are doing, right? So how are we extracting the data? How are we transforming and loading the data as part of migration, right? So at the same time, how to map the data, right? So how to map the fields. You must be knowing about how the data mapping will be taken place. So for that, how are you going to define whatever the file formats we have? Because some applications can be in JSON file format and some can be in XML file format. So file formats can be different, right? Either it can be JSON or XML file formats and all. So we need to define XML and JSON file formats majorly to understand about request and response structures, etc. So this is one thing. So if you are a technical BA, when we are working on the particular scenario where a retail company wants to integrate their legacy inventory system with new e-commerce storefront. So as a technical business analyst, we need to map the fields between two systems, right? So what type of systems, right? So two systems from inventory systems to e-commerce, where we want to map the data fields. The same information has to be accessed. For example, the inventory system data is something different than it was presenting on the e-commerce, so that you cannot access the right information, you get the error out of it. So mapping the data fields is important. So for that, if you want to map the data fields and all, so file formats are important. What kind of file formats we are using? Sometimes we use JSON file format, sometimes we may be using XML. So that request and response structure. Request means you are sending information that I want to access the information, wherein you are getting response from the other end. That is called request and response structures. So defining XML and as well as JSON request response structure is the key task if you are a technical business analyst. I have rendered. This is how then generally the answer must be. Next, what should be the key deliverables end of the day, right? So because end of the day that we must be landed properly. What should be the key deliverable? Key deliverable like sequence diagrams that we are showing. So handshake between systems and as well as a detailed data mapping document. Because to prepare sequence diagrams, there can be a possibility like what kind of tools that we have used and all. Normally sequence and collaboration diagrams were interconnected. So we have many other tools like Star UML. We have many other tools like Microsoft Visio, Lucid Charts, Rational Rules, right? So there are a lot of tools available. So wherein by using those tools, what we do, we are creating the sequence diagram so that we are showing the handshake between the systems and as well as detailed mapping document. So data mapping document, this must be the deliverable. So what is important as a team, one should be known and one should understand about how the detailed data mapping document will be created and how data mapping document looks like. Okay, data mapping documents which are presented by us in the organization. So wherein from a business analyst, technical business analyst point of view, we must be knowing about the detailing of the data mapping document. At the same time, we must be knowing about how the sequence diagrams will show, right? So how to create sequence diagram, how to create collaboration, because sequence and collaboration were interconnected. So sequence and collaborations are called interaction diagrams because normal diagrams of UML is classified into two parts. One is static diagrams, second is dynamic diagrams. Static diagrams means use case diagrams, all there were static in line. Dynamic diagrams mean sequence collaboration. These were dynamic diagrams where you may require to make some changes according to the requirements of the customer. So changes sometimes when it is required. So sequence diagrams that we are showing, right? So how the sequential process happening between the legacy inventory systems to the new e-commerce print. So that sequential process we have to visualize. So that visualization plays a vital role so that technical team will understand well better so that how the logic has to be developed by them will be decided by them later on. Along with this data mapping document, of course, as in when our responsibilities to create some data mapping documents are so based on the profile that we are varying on. So we have to prepare and we need to prepare data mapping document with the help of other team members also. So this is one scenario, okay, system integration and API strategy. When we go for an interview or when we are working on the real environment, understanding over the technical jargons and how that functions, right? So what as a business analyst our responsibilities are and how this can be defined. So these kind of understanding is always advisable. This is what the one scenario is all about. Later on, I'll be discussing other scenarios whenever I get time, right? So about the data migration parts and all. So that will be discussed in coming days.